Hello everyone! Today we have r/AskReddit, where we talk about love, about gut feeling, and about embarrassment. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. What is the worst secondhand embarrassment you've ever felt? Was a dinner party when my friend's mother-in-law asked another one of our friends when her baby was due. She wasn't pregnant. Anyway, mother-in-law should have simply apologized, but instead doubles down with something to the effect of, "It sure looks like you're pregnant." Went to an Italian restaurant once with someone who was learning Italian and knew quite a bit. None of the stuff were Italian. It was essentially just a pizzeria in a small town. She insisted on ordering for the whole table in the language with the correct pronunciation, etc. Waitress was like 17 and didn't have a clue what was happening, whilst we all just sat there. A colleague of mine put in his 2 weeks. For context, he's a fairly attractive man. Well, this woman from HR, of all places, comes by his cubicle to, wish him well, I guess. Anyway, she basically gives him a spicy dance right there in front of the whole office. I was selling some kettlebells on Facebook Marketplace, and a woman, early 40s maybe, bought them. She came to pick them up, and as I handed them over to her, she obviously wasn't expecting them to be as heavy as they were. And as she suddenly strained to the counter the weight, she ripped the most extreme of guesses you have ever heard. It was gargantuan. I was shocked, but also proud. I'm usually pretty good at making light of any situation, but I found myself speechless for the first time in my life. If I could, I would have returned serve. But even on my best day, I do not believe I could create such a symphony. We both kind of stared into each other's eyes, and she said, "Well," and turned around and walked off. I think about her often. Wait, so did she get the kettlebells or not? Because I looked through the replies and I didn't find the answer, but I found this gem of a reply. I briefly worked for a super aggressive woman divorce lawyer. She was ruthless. One day, she just passed the gas in her office while I'm there with her. So matter of fact, to this day, I'm not sure if it was an accident or a power move to assert dominance. Oh my god, I love it! My old boss, who was basically real-life Michael Scott, was describing a co-worker on the first day she came in for an interview. He described her to her face as the blue pill with legs. You know what kind of blue pill I mean. I remember it was many years ago, but it was me and my sister, and we were visiting her friend, and we were having a dinner, everything was amazing. And then, for some reason, her friend's dog went to the middle of the kitchen where we were and started to hump air. And everybody was like, okay. I mean, we knew the family and the dog and everything was okay, but I just felt for my sister's friend. Married people in Reddit. What made you say, "I'm gonna marry this person"? Year and a half into dating, he drove more than 3 hours to my university, we were long distance, while I was sick. He arrived with soup, smoothie, cough drops, movies downloaded on his laptop, and Gatorade for me. During this time, I thought he was just a dude who was in it mostly for adult time. I specifically told him to not come over since I had horrible diarrhea, cough, vomit, snotty nose, and I was contagious. He still came and laid with me, cleaned me up, fed me, and kissed my forehead all weekend long. That was in 2014. I mean, sweet! But on the other hand, how did he feel after that? Was it your turn to take care of him? She had an iPhone 4, brand new at the time. And I had a regular old dumb phone. We were walking into Walmart and I realized I had to poop. I tell her, "I'm going to the bathroom." She asks, "Are you going to poop? Do you want to switch phones so you can play a game while you're pooping?" I swooned. I think if you Google true love, this story would come up. He would call me every night while stationed in Korea and read my kids, not his, a bedtime story or play Battleship with us over FaceTime. Their birth dad was also overseas and he would call once a month. He would also make up bedtime stories if he forgot his book, so they would get stories from Lord of the Rings that he remembered. When we moved in together, he continued to read them stories. Even now, 7 years later, he will still lay with my older kids until they fall asleep. He reads to our youngest, he works really hard to understand them and help them with their emotions, even while he's still learning about his. He's constantly trying to be better. He's still human, but his smile, laugh, and his love for our mixed-up family is why I picked him. We came home to my apartment intoxicated after a concert one night. My cat had knocked over a glass bottle while we were out. There were shards everywhere. Despite being very not sober, we both just started cleaning up, sweeping and making sure that my cat didn't go near the glass. It was teamwork. I knew he'd make a good partner. Oh, this is my favorite because I love animals and I love people who love animals. What is the scariest trust your gut feeling you felt before and glad you did so? When I was a teen, I'd make a few bucks helping a local farmer bale hay. The hay would be stacked on a trailer and towed by a tractor to the barn. I usually sat on the front of the trailer on the way to the barn, but I suddenly felt like that wasn't a good place to be and I moved to the back. As soon as I did, I hear a clang. The hitch had come loose from the tractor while heading down a steep hill. I climbed down the back and easily stepped off, moments before the trailer flipped over into a ravine. Not sure if it qualifies, but I used to live and work in the suburbs. One evening, I was driving home at dusk. I was 18 or 19 and had the house to myself. My brother was out of town and mom was at her parents'. My job was about 10 miles from my house and maybe 6 turns on decently sized roads. I'm a fairly observant person, and it wouldn't be odd for the same car to be behind me for half of those turns, but this time a car followed me all the way to my residential street. I got a gut feeling I was being followed, so I passed my house and turned left. My house was one over from the corner of another residential street that was a quarter-mile loop that also had another small street in it that reconnected to the loop, then back to my street. The car followed me as I made a loop. I then turned right to restart the loop and it followed me again. This time I turned down the small street and completed the loop again. It followed me one more time. As I was about to make the loop for the first time, they finally drove off. I drove around another 5 minutes just to make sure they didn't circle back, as I had nowhere else to park except out front of my house. But I was creeped out the rest of the night. I slept with my door locked and barricaded and with a big kitchen knife. I have no idea if or why they followed me. I don't know if it was a friend pranking me or if my brother put one of his friends up to this, since it's the only time that's ever happened and it was quite confidential that I was alone. I worked retail and some of the employees did have records, so I just don't know. Oh, this story creeps me out. But honestly, I think it would be a better idea to call your brother or to just drive off to some very busy area, because this could have ended very differently. When I was pregnant, I got bit by a Lyme tick at 28 weeks. Noticed the bullseye and got on antibiotics. My OBGYN brushed it off after that. No harm done, according to her. When I went to the hospital at 35 weeks to register for delivery, normal procedure here, I mentioned the Lyme, but that I took ABX. The next day, they call me and tell me they want to induce at 37 weeks because Lyme can damage the placenta and they would rather not risk it. Woof. I talked to my OBGYN about it and she basically laughed it off, telling me not to induce. My gut instinct told me to induce. So I went with the hospital advice and had my son at 37 weeks. He was tiny, and it was a tough few weeks after that getting him to eat and stuff because he was so tiny and tired. The hospital sent the placenta to pathology. It was severely damaged and wouldn't have held up much longer. If I had listened to my OBGYN, I would have probably lost my son. Needless to say, I switched OBGYNs after that. And this is why, people, when we have doubts, we get a second opinion from another doctor. And honestly, I admire this person because I would be just, okay, my OBGYN said so, so I will do so. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch that awesome video or this awesome playlist. See you next time!